This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. Now everyone has seen bits and parts of the contretemps between Vance and Zelensky and Trump and Zelensky. So let's get to some of the fallout before we bring on Stephen Bucci and some of the criticism of it. We want to address the critics. David Brooks, nauseated. The culmination of 6 weeks of nausea that has afflicted David Brooks.
I was nauseated. I just nauseated. All my life I've had a certain idea about America, that we're a flawed country, but we're fundamentally a force for good in the world. That we defeated Soviet Union, we defeated fascism, we did the Marshall Plan, we did PEPFAR to help people live in Africa. And we make mistakes, Iraq, Vietnam, but they're usually mistakes out of stupidity, naivete, and arrogance. They're not because we're ill-intentioned. What I've seen over the last 6 weeks is the United States behaving vilely to our friends in Canada and Mexico, vilely to our friends in Europe, and today was the bottom of the barrel. Vilely to a man who was defending Western values at great personal risk to him and his countrymen. Donald Trump believes in one thing. He believes that might makes right. And in that, he agrees with Vladimir Putin, that they are birds of a feather. And he and Vladimir Putin together are trying to create a world that's safe for gangsters, where ruthless people can thrive. And we saw the product of that effort today in the Oval Office. And at first I was thinking, am I feeling grief? Am I feeling shock, like I'm in a hallucination? But I just think shame, moral shame. It's a moral injury to see the country love behaving this way.
He feels shame at what he witnessed on Friday between those heads of state. Amy Klobuchar, senator from Minnesota, is appalled.
One of the most troubling things to me was when Vice President Vance, as I noted today, as he accused President Zelensky of never thanking America. And as you just recently showed on your show, repeatedly I have heard President Zelensky thank Republicans, thank Democrats in private meetings, in public events, over and over. I once heard the story from embassy personnel and our American embassy in Ukraine, that Ukrainians in delis would write on their food, "Thank you, America." Ukrainians and President Zelensky are grateful, and I really resented that Vice President Vance said that.
We're not counting thank yous. That's not the point. The point was the jackpotting of the president and the vice president, for that matter, the administration, by attending a meeting where there was an expectation a deal was to be signed and balking at signing that deal, negotiating after the fact, as it were. That's the issue that David Brooks and Amy Klobuchar and the rest of the usual suspects are gliding quickly by.
Well, during that meeting, Trump reminded people that he's not aligned with Putin.
I'm not aligned with Putin. I'm not aligned with anybody. I'm aligned with the United States of America and for the good of the world. I'm aligned with the world, and I want to get this thing over with. You see the hatred he's got for Putin. It's very tough for me to make a deal with that kind of hate. He's got tremendous hatred.
Well, that's not good enough for Alexander Vindman. Yeah, he was
remember him?
Broken out of the emergency glass by CNN, of course. Alexander Vindman, who instigated, with a lot of help, Trump impeachment 1.0, you remember, where he didn't appreciate the chief executive's position on Ukraine, so he decided that he would step in and be the lead dog on America's foreign policy in place of the president, because that's what a lieutenant colonel can do. Well, he wants apologies and a resignation.
President Trump owes Zelensky an apology for the way he was treated.
For what?
I demand it.
What?
I demand that they give
You demand. Okay, UN resolution number 2.
If you're going to go ahead and say preposterous things like Zelensky owes an apology for being attacked, I'm going to go ahead and say something outrageous. Actually, I'm going to go.
If the price of you say that Ukraine wants peace,
I think JD Vance should resign. How about that? We're just going to go through crazy stuff into there.
You say Ukraine wants peace.
Stephen Bucci served America for 3 decades as Army Special Forces officer and top Pentagon official, now visiting fellow in the Heritage Foundation's Allison Center for Foreign Policy Studies. Stephen, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Sure. Thank you for having me back on the show.
Nauseated, appalled, resentful. Apologies are owed to Zelensky, who's upholding Western values, while Trump and Putin are conspiring to institute a gangsterocracy across the globe. What say you?
Well, let's park the pearl clutching and all the other junk that you just gave examples of there. First of all, the idea that President Trump is, in cahoots with Putin is just stupid. It's right there with the claims during the election. Oh my God, it's the death of democracy. If he gets elected again, the Nazis will be marching down Broadway. I mean, come on. How stupid do they think people are? Look, President Trump approaches this differently. That's clear. He's never hidden that he approaches this stuff differently. And, I was just amazed at what happened. I thought it was unfortunate. It should have been the photo op at the beginning. They get rid of the press. They go in, they sign the agreement, and we move to the next step in this process. From what I understand, though, apparently a bunch of liberal Democrats met with Zelensky before he went in there and pushed him to do what he did, to push the issue when the press was still in the room. That was a major tactical error. It was not appropriate. It caught Trump and Vance by surprise. And you know what? They don't like to be surprised.
Yeah.
No president likes to be surprised when it's supposed to just be a photo op. Well,
even more than it's supposed to be a photo op, we have a deal. You're coming here to consummate a deal, and then we build off of that deal. And now you're going to not only jackpot me, but then start negotiating after the fact, talking about security guarantees. And then you're going to, on top of it, you're going to start lecturing me about what will be visited on America if we don't, essentially dance to the tune that you're playing.
Yeah, it's just, and pardon me, but David Brooks is he's either the biggest snowflake in the world, and has absolutely no real understanding of history and diplomacy and international relations, or he's just a liar. Come on, stop. Maybe he was trying for, Quinn told me you guys wanted to really talk about the Oscars. Maybe David Brooks was shooting for an Oscar with that set of remarks.
Yeah.
It was that ridiculous. Amy Klobuchar, she dances to her own strange tune already. And Vindman, for goodness sakes, Vindman was a failed military officer in the same subspecialty that I was in, the Foreign Area Officer Group. The stuff that he has done is such a disgrace to all of us that served as attachés, that served as policy advisors. Is just absurd. He really, really just needs to sit down and shut up. He's hurt this country. He's a disgrace to his uniform, and his opinions mean absolutely nothing. But all that said, Zelensky blew it. He should not have played that card that he played. I to be honest with you, wish President Trump and Vice President Vance had kept it ratcheted down a little. They didn't. They got ambushed and they were ticked.
Yeah.
Okay, let's figure out what we can do next. But all these claims, this fear mongering, I got a call from a dear friend, actually a LinkedIn message from a dear friend when Trump made those comments about Zelensky being a dictator. And she said, "Oh, are you now supporting that?" I said, "No, I don't necessarily agree with that, but I understand where President Trump's coming from, and I think we can move forward from this." And she's like, "Okay, hasn't Trump yet?" And I said, "No, he's elected president of the United States. Get used to it. He's going to be in charge for the next 4 years. Stop the drama and let's do policy, not theatrics."
Well, it's funny you
can't help themselves.
It's funny you say that too, because of course then Trump was asked about that dictator comment, And he said, "Did I say that? That doesn't sound like something I'd say." I mean, he's just trolling these guys, and he's trying to get. It's easy to call names. Where I'm trying to be in the middle and get this thing done. He's trying to be a pragmatic peacemaker, and if you don't like his approach, which by the way seems to be bearing fruit, because then Zelensky tweeted on Saturday, or put out post on X on Saturday, that he was ready to sign the minerals agreement, and then with additional security guarantees, move the flag forward, and so on and so forth. So I don't know if he's two-stepping again, or if he's serious this time. But I mean, the only play that makes any sense is to work with your major benefactor. There is no other play for Zelensky.
Absolutely. Look. No offense, Zelensky is not an equal player in the negotiation between Ukraine and the United States. He's not. He is the recipient of aid. The recipient doesn't get to dictate how the game is played. Now, if he wants to make a hard stand and say, no, we've got to keep fighting, this is the only way we're going to do it, President Trump has every right in representing the interest of the United States to say, well, we're just not going to go that way. Sorry, we're going to do something else. Now, the fact that President Trump didn't just break off negotiations and say, well, you're on your own, dude. I hope you enjoy your invasion. It tells you that he's not in bed with Vladimir Putin, because he had a perfect opportunity right there to throw the glove down and say, okay, that's it. We're going to help Russia finish this off so we can get it done. He didn't say anything like that. And I don't think he will say anything like that because it's not the right thing to say, number one. And two, I don't think that's ever been his intent. So the left needs to take a breath, stop the fear-mongering, stop the dramatic provocations. And if you don't like the way President Trump is doing it, then win the election next time. That's your option. You don't get to now tell him how he's going to do business, because he's not going to listen to you, and nor should he.
Yeah. What do you think it'll take for those two to get back in the same room, Zelensky and Trump? I mean, Britain and France, they're collaborating on a ceasefire plan to present to the United States, but is he going to sit and listen?
I'm okay with the Europeans getting together, talking, trying to bring this thing to a conclusion that Trump will give him a thumbs up for. That's what they should have been doing in the first place.
Yeah, promises from those people.
Well, yeah, I get that, but if at least they're making promises now. Before they weren't doing anything. I mean, they were helping materially, but working towards a ceasefire, they were just standing there waiting for America to tell them what to do. They didn't get any direction under Biden, and now they've got a president giving them direction. Okay, maybe they don't like it 100%, but you know what? I haven't worked for too many people that I agreed with every single thing that they did. And right now, in this situation, the Europeans are, and I'm doing air quotes so nobody get too upset, they're working for the United States. The United States is the lead.
Yeah, well, I mean,
and get in line.
I mean, so UK's Defense Minister John Healey said the frontline defense of the UK starts in Ukraine. In one of these statements that politicians like to make, beating their chests. And Sturmer's out there talking about this framework they have, and $2 billion in loan guarantees, and the missiles in the sky, and boots on the ground. I mean, doesn't somebody have to say, I mean, that's nice, and we're glad that you're picking up the pace and trying to shoulder more responsibility the best way you know how. But I mean, it doesn't change the dynamic at all. Your $2 billion in loan guarantees and soaring rhetoric doesn't change the calculus of what's going on in Eastern Europe an iota.
It really doesn't. And, we've got to do this right. We've got to go into this together, talking. So I think Zelensky's step saying, okay, look, I want to sign the mineral deal. Let's get together and do that. He needs to go in. He doesn't have to go in with his hat in his hand, but he needs to go in with, okay, we already negotiated this part of it. Let's sign it, get that done. We understand what the president's trying to do. He's trying to bring peace. Let's all work together. He needs to throw a bone to Trump to let him know he now understands the dynamics and he's ready to work within them.
Yeah, and
I think President Trump will go, okay, come on, let's do this and move on.
Well, and Zelensky said something in the post meltdown interview he did with Brett Baer, where he talked about security guarantees and the U.S. and NATO and so forth. I mean, if his concern is the U.S. pulling out of NATO, and by the way, Musk didn't help that concern when he indicated support for leaving NATO and the UN, calling NATO a Cold War relic. But if that's his concern, then, the way to play that is to say, Mr. President, it seems to me, Mr. President, I just want to make sure that, the U.S. is staying in NATO because, of course, Western Europe relies on U.S. leadership, and so does, by extension, Ukraine. Whether we're ever a party to NATO or not, we still need the United States to be the principal mover in NATO. And so I just want to make sure that, you're sticking it out. If he did something like that, I think he'd get what he wants in terms of any sort of rational security guarantee.
I think so, too. Look, the mineral deal is in itself a security guarantee.
Right.
If America's in there mining those minerals are pretty important to us because the Chinese have them wrapped up everywhere else in the world. I think that if we're in there doing that, that is a clear signal to Russia, hands off, stay out of here. And now trying to get the parts back that have already been lost that the Obamas and the Bidens gave away or allowed Russia to take during their time, that's a tougher lift. And, I don't think, one, we have the responsibility to make sure that happens or that we even have the wherewithal to make it happen short of going to war. And I don't think we want to go to war with Russia. Not that I'm afraid of Russia. I think we destroy Russia pretty handily, but we don't want to do that. We don't want to do it to the Russian people. We don't want to use Ukraine for a further battlefield and destroy the things there that are not yet destroyed. But, so Zelensky needs to recognize that and maybe for now take what he can get and not try and overplay his hand, which I think he did in that meeting.
Stephen Bucci served America for 3 decades as Army Special Forces officer, top Pentagon official, now a visiting fellow in the Heritage Foundation's Allison Center for Foreign Policy Studies. Stephen, thank you as always.
It's my pleasure, guys, and I look forward to talking to you next week.
All right, take care. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
There's only one radio show in Chicago talking about today's biggest stories and telling you what they really mean. That show is this one, Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560, The Answer.
A great smile can make you feel happy and confident. So when you consciously conserve your teeth, that glowing smile will show through. At Best Dental Group, doctors Economos, Gave Alice, and their staff are ready to help you create that perfect look or maintain the one you have now, along with